There is a particular kind of pain that has no clean name. It isn't grief, because they're still alive, still breathing, still existing somewhere in the world. It isn't loneliness, because you can feel it in a crowded room, surrounded by laughter and noise, and it still finds you. It isn't heartbreak in the traditional sense, because nothing dramatic happened. No fight, no goodbye, no door slamming shut. It's something quieter than all of that. It's the slow, suffocating ache of watching a connection fade. And realizing, no matter how hard you reach, you cannot stop it. The texts get shorter, then rarer. The calls stop coming on a Thursday like they always did. The inside jokes don't get referenced anymore. The warmth in their voice, when you do finally speak, has changed just enough that you feel it, even though you can't prove it. And you lie awake at night trying to figure out what went wrong. You replay conversations. You search for the moment it shifted. You wonder if you said the wrong thing, wanted too much, were too available, not available enough. And underneath all of that searching, underneath all of that analyzing, there is a deeper fear. A fear that their pulling away means something about you, something fundamental, something that can't be fixed. Buddhism doesn't ask, why are they pulling away? Buddhism asks something far more important. What is this pain trying to show you about yourself? The story of Teshi. I want to tell you about a man named Teshi. Teshi was not a broken person. He was not someone with obvious wounds or a dramatic past. He was thoughtful. He was kind. He was the kind of person people described as steady. And then he met May. Their connection didn't start with fireworks. It started with something rarer. It started with ease. The conversations flowed like water. Hours would pass and neither of them noticed. They laughed until their cheeks hurt over things that wouldn't be funny to anyone else. She remembered small details he mentioned in passing. He found himself thinking about her during ordinary moments, while making coffee, while walking to work, while sitting in silence. He felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. He felt chosen. He felt like himself, but more so. Like her presence had turned up the brightness on everything inside him. He felt worthy, desired, enough. And for a while it was mutual. He was sure of it. But then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, something began to change. Her responses took longer. Where she used to reply in minutes, now it was hours. Where she used to send voice notes and long rambling paragraphs, now it was a few words, a thumbs up. Nothing. He told himself it was just life. She was busy. Everyone gets busy. But the distance wasn't just in response times. It was in the temperature of her words. The warmth was retreating, like sunlight slipping behind clouds. Still technically present, but no longer something you could feel on your skin. He did what most of us do when we feel someone slipping away. He tried harder. He sent longer messages. He opened up more, thinking vulnerability would close the gap. He crafted texts so carefully they took him 30 minutes to write. He looked for the perfect thing to say, the sentence that would bring back the ease, the version of her that lit up when she saw his name on her phone. He started reading her messages the way you read a contract, searching for clues, for meaning, for hidden signals. Was this one warmer? Was she distant today? What did it mean that she used a period instead of an ellipsis? He had become an analyst of her attention. And the more he reached, the more he tried to engineer connection, the more she seemed to pull back. He couldn't understand it. He replayed their last few conversations looking for the mistake. He asked mutual friends, vague, careful questions, hoping for information without revealing how much he was unraveling. And at night, alone with the silence and his phone face up on the pillow beside him, he wasn't just afraid of losing May. He was afraid of what her silence meant about him. The mirror we seek in others. Here is the thing about falling in love, or falling into deep connection of any kind. We tell ourselves it's about the other person. And it is. Genuinely. The care is real. The love is real. But there is something else happening beneath the surface that most of us never examine. When someone sees us, truly sees us, and chooses us anyway, something happens inside us. We don't just feel loved, we feel confirmed. We feel like the evidence is finally in. The verdict is, I am worth loving. I am worth choosing. I am enough. And when that reflection begins to dim, when the person who made us feel that way begins to withdraw, we don't just feel loss. We feel the ground shift beneath us, because we had built our sense of self on that reflection. Teshi's mood rose and fell with May's response times. His confidence expanded when she was warm and collapsed when she was distant. His peace of mind had relocated from inside himself to inside her phone, and he hadn't even noticed it happening. The Buddha said something that is difficult to hear. You only lose what you cling to. Teshi sat with that for a long time. He thought he was clinging to May. But the deeper he looked, the more clearly he saw. He was clinging to a feeling about himself that he had allowed her to become responsible for. The feeling of mattering. The feeling of being enough. The feeling of being seen. He had outsourced his self-worth to another human being. And human beings, beautiful, complicated, impermanent human beings, are not designed to hold that kind of weight. The silent contract. We never agreed to one night. Teshi sat down and did something he had never done before. He wrote out, honestly, for no one but himself, what he had silently expected from May. Not what he had asked for. Not what he had said out loud. What he had assumed. What he had quietly required. He wrote, respond quickly, so I know I matter. Initiate sometimes. So I know I'm not alone in this. Be warm even when you're tired, so I don't spiral. Remember things I told you, so I know you care. Don't go quiet because your silence means something is wrong with me. He stared at that list for a long time. He had never asked May for any of those things, but he had needed them from her desperately. And when she didn't deliver them, he had treated it as a verdict. He had called it love. But a large part of it, he could now see clearly, was fear dressed up as love. Fear of being alone. Fear of being forgettable. Fear of the silence inside himself that he had been using connection to avoid. Zen teaches us something uncomfortable. We do not suffer because of what other people do. We suffer because of what we believe their actions mean about us. May's slower responses were data. They were information about where she was in her own life, her own interior world, her own capacity at that moment. They were not a referendum on Teshi's worth. Her silence was not the wound. His interpretation of her silence, the story he constructed in that silence, that was the wound. He had forgotten, somewhere along the way, that his worth was never hers to grant, and it was never hers to take away. The hardest practice. Teshi made a decision, not to send the perfect message, not to withdraw strategically, not to play a different game. He made a decision to sit with the discomfort, to stop running from the feeling, to stop using his phone as a way to escape what was happening inside him. This is a practice so simple it sounds almost meaningless, and yet it is one of the hardest things a person can do, because the silence, when you stop filling it, is enormous. The first few days were brutal. Every time he felt the urge to reach out, He put his phone down and just breathed. He noticed the anxiety in his chest, that tight, restless urgency, and instead of acting on it, he watched it. He meditated. Badly at first, his mind spinning, replaying conversations, composing messages he wasn't sending. He walked alone in the evenings without earphones in, just the sound of the city, his own footsteps, his own breathing. He cooked meals he used to love and had stopped making because he was always waiting, always half present, half somewhere else. He started journaling. Not about May, about himself, about what he noticed, about the thoughts that came up in the quiet. Some nights were genuinely awful. There were evenings when a memory would rise up out of nowhere. The sound of her laugh, a specific moment, the way she once said his name, and the grief of it would be physical, a heaviness in his chest, a tightness in his throat. He didn't run from it. He learned to let it pass like weather. He learned that feelings, even the crushing ones, are not permanent. They rise, they peak, and if you don't feed them with stories, they fall. Slowly, so slowly he almost missed it, something began to shift. He started remembering who he was before May, the version of him who had interests and passions that had nothing to do with anyone's approval, the version of him who had a sense of humor that made himself laugh, the version of him who could sit in silence and feel at home in it. He had not lost that person. He had simply abandoned him in favor of chasing a reflection. And one quiet evening, a Tuesday, nothing special about it, he was sitting with a cup of tea, the window open, the city making its ordinary sounds outside. And he realized he felt peaceful, not because she had called, not because anything had been resolved, not because the outcome he feared had been avoided. He felt peaceful because he had returned to himself. He had come home. What the Buddha taught about impermanence. Gautama Buddha taught that all things are impermanent. Anicca, the teaching of impermanence, is one of the foundational truths of Buddhist philosophy. We often hear this and feel sad. We hear it as loss, as a warning that everything we love will eventually be taken from us. But that is only half of what impermanence means. The other half is this. Every moment of connection you have ever shared with another person was a gift, not a guarantee, not a contract, not something owed to you by the universe. A gift. The midnight conversations, the shared laughter, the moments of being truly seen by another human being. These are extraordinary things, rare things, things that do not have to happen and yet somehow do. Impermanence doesn't diminish them. It makes them precious. Teshi had been treating May's presence as something he deserved, as something he had earned and was therefore owed. But love is not a transaction. Belonging is not a contract. Connection arrives, it changes, sometimes it deepens, and sometimes, without malice, without a verdict on anyone's worth, it fades. The question is not, how do I make this last forever? The question is, can I receive this gift fully, and can I remain whole when it changes? The unexpected message. Weeks passed, and then one afternoon, his phone buzzed. A message from May. Simple, warm, checking in. How are you? I've been thinking about you. He read it twice. A few months earlier, that message would have consumed him. He would have screenshot it and analyzed every word. He would have felt the hit of validation like a drug. He would have replied immediately, too eager, too much, and spent the next several hours waiting for her response, his entire emotional state held hostage to her next move. Instead, he sat with it for a moment. He felt something warm. He was glad to hear from her. He replied, kindly, genuinely, without calculation. And then he set his phones down and went back to his life, his own, full, complete, no longer waiting life. He cared about May. He probably always would. But he no longer depended on her. His okayness no longer lived inside her responses. He had taken it back. He had claimed it as his own. The real lesson, here is what I want you to hear, really hear. If you are somewhere in the middle of this right now, some relationships are meant to stay. Some are meant to teach. And sometimes, the most important lessons arrive wrapped in the thing we feared most. Your worth is not measured by who texts you back. Read that again. Your worth is not stored inside someone else's attention. Your peace of mind is not a thing that another person can give you or take away. Your wholeness, your fundamental, inherent completeness as a human being, is not assembled from validation. It was never theirs to grant. The greatest mistake is not when someone stops calling. The greatest mistake is allowing their silence to write the story of who you are. Gautama Buddha said, "You yourself must strive. The Buddhas only point the way. No teacher can do the inner work for you. No relationship can give you what you haven't yet found inside yourself. No amount of being chosen by someone else can substitute for the radical act of choosing yourself. Peace does not come when they return. Peace comes when you return to yourself, to your breath, to the quiet, unshakable truth of who you are beneath all the noise of wanting and being wanted." For anyone sitting in the silence, tonight, if you are in the silence right now, if tonight you checked your phone too many times, if tonight the absence of a notification felt like a small death, if tonight you lay in the dark and wondered what their silence meant about you, I want you to hear this clearly. Their silence is not a verdict on your value. It is a season. All seasons pass, and in the passing, if you are willing to sit with it rather than flee from it, you will find something extraordinary waiting for you on the other side. Yourself. The version of you that doesn't need the applause to know the performance was real. The version of you that doesn't need the reply to know the love was genuine. The version of you that can sit in complete silence and feel, at the bottom of it all, whole. You are not a supporting character in someone else's story. You are the whole story. Return to yourself. Return to your breath. Return to the quiet, steady, ancient strength that was always there, waiting for you. Underneath all the reaching and the wanting and the fear, you were never broken. You were just looking for yourself in the wrong place. Come home, and may you find peace, whether someone is calling or not.